Hello, this is Jacob Nelson from my own channel, and I'm here with Scott from Introvert Power. We are talking about personalities, INFP and INFJ. This is part 2 of the series. We talked about in part 1 identity, and now we're going to move on to loss. And that can deal with many things like abandonment and death and other things, but generally it's the topic of loss. And Scott, if you could introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi everybody, Scott here from the Introvert Power channel. Just to let you know, I have a Facebook page, the Introvert Power Facebook page that I've just set up, so feel free to come and join that. And my website is personalitypower.com.au.
Thank you. So just to start off here, how, in general, does the INFJ see the notion of loss? Let me give you a little help here. Maybe not knowing or not having enough information, or not feeling included, or not knowing what to do.
Yeah. So I'm not sure if this is an INFJ response or a Scott response, maybe a bit of both, but I did hear someone a few years ago talk about that life is a grief journey, and that we're always saying goodbye to something in order to move into something new. And yeah, that statement sort of resonated with me, or it stuck with me. So I guess I want to answer it maybe in two levels, sort of like the macro and the micro, and maybe a few stories there. I'll just see where it leads me. But I had a conversation with my mother a few years ago, and she said that she got the feeling when I was born that I was annoyed, like I resented being here, something along those lines.
Wow.
And the way I hear that is the sense that I was happy where I was before I was even conceived. And I mean, there's a lot of theories around, without going into that world. And I hold this sort of stuff very loosely, but there's some theories that, like, we exist before we're born, sort of thing. And for me, I sort of hear that as, I was happy with God and in the eternal world or whatever, and why did you send me here? I was comfortable already, I was happy there. And so there's a sense of, I connect with that when I say it. And there's a sense, for me at least, that I'm trying to get back there, always trying to get back to that pure place, if you like. And so maybe that's where I'll start off, is there. What about for you?
Yeah, that's interesting. You liked the place before you were here, huh? Regretted it.
Say that again?
They sort of resented being here when you were born.
Yeah, like what did you do that for? I was happy before I got here. Now I've got to work this out.
you just gave me a big problem to solve. I didn't. Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of funny because I'm not sure if this goes for all INFPs, but for me at least, I had the sense, at least from my mom was saying, was that I was the best baby because I didn't cry much. I didn't, whine or complain much or anything like that. This could be the 9 in my 459 of the Enneagram, which is, I want to say that's the sort of peaceful spirit. You just want to be at peace. But I had no problem not knowing anything. Whereas maybe some babies, when they're whining a lot and they're throwing the fork, like my brother is not an INFP. He used to throw his spoons and forks and cups and bowls at mom and dad, saying, I want more food, or I don't like this food, or whatever it is. You just he wanted to somehow communicate and say, don't like this. This is how I am. This is how I want it. Whatever it is. He wants me to demand something or want something. And for me, it was like I didn't really care which way it went. It doesn't even matter which way it goes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you take me out of the crib, that's the same as you putting me in the crib. It doesn't matter. It's just it is what it is, and just accept it, kind of thing. So I was very easy. Happy to be here, but just didn't really mind not knowing anything because that's my normal state is not knowing anything.
Right. Well, that's interesting.
So I guess we're INFPs are babies forever in that sense, where we're just it is what it is. Just accept it.
Yes. Do we have an audience at all, Jacob?
Yeah, we have a viewer, one viewer here. I'm not sure how to check it exactly, but
maybe we can put out there if there's any questions to let us know.
Yeah, I'm trying to get the Q&A up here. The feature is disabled. Well, let's enable it. If I can figure that out.
Okay.
I feel handicapped. How do I get this thing up?
Yeah, I don't know either.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, if I figure it out here, here, there's group chat. Well, that's only between me and you, I think. That's not the audience. Yeah. I wonder if they can type messages in group chat. I don't think they can. Can I invite them?
Well, I mean, I guess if the viewer definitely wants to ask a question, maybe through Google Plus or something, and
yeah, let's see here. Maybe the event page. So the people watching, if you can type through the event page, you could add something. There we go. I just started it, shared it. Maybe you can add onto that.
No pressure to ask a question, though.
All right. So let's move on to the next area here. Let's move on to the other aspect of loss. You said it was kind of heavy, but I am curious how the INFJs handle the idea of death. Do you see that as? I guess let me give you some sort of context here. In INFPs, I don't know what it is. Maybe I do, but we always think about death as the ultimate loss, the ultimate drama, the pinnacle, the height of this feeling of abandonment, or
is that like an abandonment of self, or abandonment of those around you,
in sort of a dark humor sort of way, I would say, it is a break from all the tension. It is the ultimate loss. I mean, yes, there is no more inner struggle. I think INFP a huge inner struggle with not only identity, but with abandonment and with loss. And I think we want to be included, and since we're not included, it's like, well, maybe when I'm gone, I will be very included because I'll have lots of attention. They will finally want to include me in their life when I'm gone. But it's like, and to us, that's the ultimate tragedy. It's like when we're gone, that's when you want to pay attention to us. And we see that as, wow, isn't that something?
Yeah.
It's the time when we're not there is when we're finally included.
Yeah, that sounds like the ultimate dichotomy of the Type 4 of wanting connection, but finding the meaning in the abandonment place. So it sounds like the ultimate of that dichotomy in that sense.
Yes, yeah.
So yeah, the whole abandonment theme for the Type 4, which I've just been reading about recently, that Type 4s have are almost born with a vulnerability to the effects of abandonment. Like they're hypersensitive to any form of abandonment. And there seems to be this sort of eternal struggle between just having a sense of abandonment, and yet yearning for deep connection and meaning within the context of relationship. So as a type 4, I certainly resonate with that. Feeling on the outside, yet very aware of what it appears to feel like on the inside, because as an observer, I get a real sense of things, a real connection with what's going on. Yet there's that sense of feeling apart from it, like I'm not in it, I'm more observing it. And I have heard that from other INFJs as well. And yet there's a yearning to be a part of it, but we seem to find our meaning from what we identify with or what we feel when we're outside of it looking at it. And yeah, there just seems to be this dichotomy, seems like the best word to use in that.
Right.
I like what you were saying, if you're able to go there in regards to the abandonment of, finding meaning in there.
There is a lot of, I guess, I want to say more than anything, poetic self-meaning, poetic self-realization and meaning, and you said abandonment. But the truth is, I don't really like the word abandonment.
No.
I don't. I think that's a really negative word. Like you had something and then you lost it. Like you were, it left you, or you were abandoned. Oh, nobody loves me. I don't like that kind of,
Sure.
Context around that. I think what it.
Yeah.
I think
just going to say.
What it is. Go ahead. No, yeah, go ahead. It's our lag.
Sorry, Jacob. Yeah, I guess we're just using the word abandonment, but I think at least in our conversation, we're using it within the context of what we mean, not necessarily what the culture means by that word. Because I'm using
I want to clarify
it
for the audience.
Oh no, I understand that. So that was my attempt to partly clarify that. But go for it.
Yeah. I guess for the INFPs, I mean, want to say that the notion of abandonment is not really lost, but I'd say it's the idea of not having the idea of identity, and like I said, having a lack of identity, and being the man in the hallway between different rooms, which do contain identities, characters and aspects of self that you project, but that may not be yourself necessarily, but are at times something you claim to be yourself. And I think it's the idea that it's not only, like I said before, like we're like water, become this or become that, but I also think it's sort of a compartmentalization to where we have, like I said before, like these different rooms. We like to create huge, large, different characters in there, different people in there, and I think I think we are most of the time walking in between rooms. We're not always in a room, and I think that while we are in a hallway between rooms in the transition period, that is usually the time when we feel a lack of identity. So it's not 100% of the time we're searching for ourselves. Like during the winter time, I was saying that around this time, this season when things are dead in the winter, is when you feel again lonely or alone, and you're again, INFPs are in a search for self again to figure out, well, what am I? Everything's lost, everything's gone, and trying to find grounding, trying to find meaning. And again, winter, it's just a transitional period between life again. Again, life will come back in the spring, and by the springtime, you'll probably have found yourself just how the nature has found itself again and is growing again. You will start growing again in the summertime. You'll be fine. You'll have, you know, fantasies and this and that. And you'll be a certain character. You'll be a summer character, whatever that is, you know. But then all of a sudden, wintertime comes again, and then you're losing your identity, and you're questioning yourself on a search, and then it just repeats. So it's seasonal, but also it has to do with the man in the hallway.
Interesting.
As for you, I mean, I know everybody has a certain flux of personality over time, and you know, personalities change over time. But as far as your identity, to me, it seems like the INFJ somewhat has a stable identity compared to the INFP. Whereas, I mean, yes, you can change things and aspects and whatnot, but overall, I feel like it's the same building. Rooms can change within the building, but the building never changes. You know, it's like that temple is the same temple, but anything inside can change. It's subject to change, but not the temple itself.
So are we looking at that in the context of loss?
Yes. So for us, we lose our entire temple. You know, our temple is the character. We lose everything. Whereas for you, you don't necessarily lose everything. I feel INFJs, you guys can lose rooms inside the temple, but you never actually lose the temple itself.
Okay.
Whereas we lose, you know, the temple. If the temple is the self identity, we lose that every time. We have like 100 temples, and we just keep switching between temples, but we lose it. Lose one, gain two. Lose two, use three. You know.
Okay. All right. Yeah, like I'm just trying to grab onto some threads. I think a way to respond to that would be that INFJs, I think, find a lot of meaning within the context of relationship, and it's probably that extroverted feeling piece of us of wanting to you know sort of being aware of the world of the other person and the feelings of the other person, and trying to find as much depth of meaning within the context of relationship. So when relationships end or change, I think the INFJ can feel that very deeply. And so a lot of that identity I think you're describing, it's not that the INFJ necessarily like loses themselves in the other person, it's that they find a lot of depth of meaning within themselves within the context of relationship. And I think to bring in another concept here of the whole, and I don't like the term actually INFJ door slam, because I think it puts a negative on the INFJ, and I don't think it's that way at all. I think INFJs generally try to hold on to and maintain relationships as much as possible. Like they put a lot of responsibility on themselves to build and maintain and stay in and fix relationship, because they don't like that feeling of loss, of losing them or changing them. And it's only, I think, when the pain outweighs the meaning, in a sense, that end of relationship would happen, which is a deep sense of loss. And for, I think, other people, they find that it seems very cold. Often people describe it as very cold, you know. But I think, you know, I addressed this in one of my other videos that the INFJ door slam. That for the INFJ, I think for a lot of the cases, they feel as though the door's been shut on them because of the lack of connection. Because usually the INFJ is doing a lot of the work, or wants to do a lot of the work, because it has so much meaning to them. So yeah, just to bring it back to the concept of loss.
Yeah. Right.
I think INFJs have a really hard time with relationships ending for whatever reason, and that can be deeply painful, because a lot of the meaning is a lot of meaning is wrapped up in relationship. So when relationship ends, it brings it back to the identity thing. As part of the identity is affected, although I don't think it's the core. I think it's the meaning around the identity that's affected. So, probably shared a whole lot of different things in there, but hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, would you say that it's the connections within the, I don't want to say system, but within the relationship, you've made many connections and you've built sort of like a foundation. You could say unconsciously, but you've put in a lot of effort to build something, and then it's sort of been was turned on you. It was all for nothing, and it's like, what was it for? And you feel this loss of the effort. What was it for? Or like, what did you gain in the end? Is that something you feel? Like, you feel like there was a lot of you didn't really gain anything. You tried to, then it was cut off.
It's a really, I think there's a complexity to this that, like, I think for the INFJ that depth of connection is experienced as though it's two-way, and that's what the INFJs, I think, are always looking for, is that depth of connection that is mutual. But I think for a lot of people, it might appear, no, well, I'll just say in a lot of cases it's actually not mutual, at least the way the INFJ would see it, because the other person's probably most likely a different type and experiences the relationship completely differently. But the INFJ lives within the context of that particular depth of meaning and is always trying to look after that. And because I think a lot of other types don't even know that exists, or don't understand the sensitivity of it or the complexity of it, can walk over it, can step on it, can undermine it, and a lot of the time it can be very unintentional. And so then the INFJ experiences a loss or a hurt within the context of that meaning, because the relationship is threatened, at least the way they see the relationship. And that's where I think there can be a lot of problems, just as a side note, a lot of problems in connection for the INFJ because of the lack of understanding between the two people, the differences of what is meaning in relationship. So I think that addressed an aspect of what you said anyway.
Yeah, and it's kind of you mentioned that you put in a lot of effort to maintain or build a relationship. I think INFPs do too, but I think one of the common problem with the INFP is that they may or may not realize that because they have this sense of a lack of identity, they're not necessarily always able to communicate how they truly feel, because you don't know where that's coming from. If they say it, is this, how do I truly feel? And you're like, well, I don't even know myself. How can I tell you how I feel? I don't know who I am. And so it's kind of like they reach like a self paradox, and they're like, well, I can tell you how I feel, but they don't know if it's the truth or not.
Right.
They
don't
know
for an INFJ, for an INFJ, that sounds like absolute torture. That sounds really hard.
Well, I mean, maybe in a sense it's a little strong, but I mean, maybe we do have a sense of how we feel, but if you have us try to exactly pin it down, like, well, can you elaborate on that? And you're like, well, not exactly. I'm still trying to figure it out myself. I'm not sure what it is that I'm dealing with.
I think I've said this to you before, I'm not sure, but I've got a mate of mine who comes over for a meal occasionally, and often he's an INFP, and often we have the sort of joke that because I usually, making dinner, so I'd say, so how are you feeling? And then I'll leave and make dinner, and that's the sense of giving him time to think about what it is that he's feeling.
Yeah. I mean, you really do. I mean, you can't just. I mean, we can't. I mean, if you'll have two responses. One is a one word. One is 1,000 words.
Yeah. Right.
we can't give you that summarized, eloquent, like, oh, I'm feeling this, and and it's a nice little sentence. It's not like that. We
Yeah.
can't do it.
No. Sure.
You
Sure.
know, we'll say either fine, I'm okay, which means I don't want to give you the 1,000-word explanation right now. It doesn't mean that I'm trying to ignore you. And some INFJs might see that as, oh, you're just trying to, oh, you don't want to share this, you don't want to participate in sharing your feelings. And
Right.
it's like that's not even close to it.
No.
It's by saying I'm fine just means that I'm not in the mood to give you the hour-long real live dig into my soul and try to figure out myself in front of you,
Yes. Yes.
because that's what it's going to be, honey. It's going to be me trying to you're going to be watching me figure out who I am in front of you.
Yeah.
It's not me already knowing who I am and telling you how I feel. It's me trying to figure it out for myself.
In that, though, it's also there's a sense at least that I mean, a lot of people are wanting the "oh, I'm fine, thanks" response, and I've found for INFPs that they very much gauge the feeling of the question. So,
Mm-hmm.
like, pick up the meaning behind the question, "How are you going?" Well, what are you feeling about this or that? And you guys tend to sort of lean on the side of caution of less is better, and unless there's more of an investigation or a curiosity from the other person to keep unpacking, and then maybe you'd probably be more willing to go deeper if you think that the other person is actually interested in going deeper.
Can you say that again? Because I have some on that.
So
That last part again about
um,
going deeper and if they're interested right before that.
uh, um,
Sorry about that. Put you on the spot.
yeah, it's gone into the ether. No, there's a sense that like you'll give a simple answer initially, but
Yeah.
if there's a genuine curiosity, you're okay to open up
It's
if
true.
you're
Yeah.
comfortable with the person.
Yeah. For sure. I mean, it's very hard. I think that we're all at different points in our journey, as like at least for as an INFP, we're all at different points in our journey of identity and many other topics. And when it comes to like you said like a relationship, if somebody asks you how are you, it's very hard sometimes for us to know how to
Mm.
respond without without being rude, or do we lie, and or are we going to say it through a character? What would a character say? What would this what do you want to hear, and I'll just give you what you want to hear.
Right.
And then oh, we're like, okay, well, if we do that, maybe later on they're going to say, well, you said you felt that way. Well, it's like, oh man, I just said that just so I can get out of the situation.
Mm.
So it can be difficult. I think mature INFPs are able to just be honest and express like, oh yeah, I don't necessarily like if I tell you how I feel, it'll be a long spiel about this. It'll be a big lengthy discussion rather
Mm.
than I can't summarize it for you. I wish I could,
Mm.
but if you have the time and you really want to know, I can talk about it. But in general, I'm okay. You know.
Mm. Mm. Mm.
But that's
Yeah.
about I can tell you. I can tell you the level of stability. That's what I can give you, like the DEF CON level or something. But I
Right.
can't go. I can't go into the documentation of the DEF CON levels, or the exact, the stability level. If I say good, what does that mean? Well, that's a different story.
Mm. Mm. Yeah.
And it's just the very nature of it, because we haven't always thought about exactly how we feel at every given moment, because if we pick apart how we feel at every moment, that means that we aren't really truly accepting it as itself. That means taking the information and compressed it down to a point. We've said that the object that passed by is a car, and we've already compressed the information valve down to saying it's a car. We've already judged it, put it in a box, and labeled it.
Yeah.
Whereas the same thing with the feeling. If we say, how are you feeling? Well, you're telling me to take the information valve and squeeze it and give you a sentence. Exactly how I'm feeling. And it's like we would rather just say, I feel good. I'm okay.
Yeah.
Which is us not compressing anything down. It's just
Yeah.
the energy around the emotional space I'm in right now.
Sure.
And that's just the reason. I wish INFPs could express and say like how you feeling. We could tell you in a maybe a poetic way. I don't know, but maybe that is a better way for us to express it. We should maybe answer with a poem. Maybe that would be better. Maybe sound a little kind of, I don't know, eccentric, but at least that would be a better way to capture how we feel at the moment if we answered with it,
Yes.
in a poetic way.
Yeah. Yeah. So this thing of death and loss, like for an INFP, like what is that about for you? Like what are some of the themes that come out of those words, meaning and such?
Yeah, you said death, right?
Mm.
Uh, yeah, I don't know, but it is definitely something that is very well known that all INFPs think about it, and they don't think about it in necessarily a dark, morbid way, how they want to, think
Sure.
about pain and whatnot. It's really this, it's the deep emotional connection to
Mm.
to whatever it is that is bigger than all of us. You know,
Okay.
um, it is the great the ultimate poem. The
Mm.
ultimate poetry of loss, you could say, and and and
Mm.
legend. It's has to do with about being included, being part of something. We never want to be part of anything. We want to be ourselves and be authentic, and we don't want to be the mainstream. You know,
Yes.
and so in a sense, at that moment of loss, you know, we are actually included. We are part of something. Like they people include
Mm.
us. They will somehow go to our funeral and we are included. Um, which is sort of a secret want I think we have is to be a part of something. But it's sort of that it's I don't know, say I ironic. It's just sort of that tragedy um, of
Mm.
the irony of it, I guess, in a certain sense, of how you you lose it, you lose everything, but you gain something you've always wanted, but you'll never know what it's like
Mm.
because you're not there to witness the gain.
Yeah.
But if you were alive, you wouldn't want them. You wouldn't want to be there. You wouldn't. I mean, you wouldn't. Sometimes it's like you want it, but you don't want it.
Yeah.
You don't want to be included. You don't with them, but you want to be
Mm.
included because you want to feel be a part of something because you want identity. But you don't want identity because you don't want to be part of the mainstream.
Yeah.
So it's that struggle between identity and death and loss and having and not having, and that's why we have this complex inner battle.
Mm. Um, Again, I don't know if this is INFJ or Scott, maybe a bit of both, but I don't think about death at all, much at all, because I don't think it doesn't fit the idealistic model. Because in a sense, the trying to create the ideal is kind of, for the most part, I think in life, trying to create an ideal world or an ideal self. And so I think in a lot of ways that picture doesn't include death.
Well,
Um, Yet it is coming. But I think just for me at least, that picture of the ideal doesn't include the end. Yet at the same time, and this is probably more my spiritual belief, there's a sense that death is graduation. that is a graduation to the next life, to heaven or whatever, that sort of thing. And so, in one sense, it's a graduation, but beyond that, I don't want to think about it. I don't want to look at it because I'm too busy. I've got this other thing going on that's trying to actualize that ideal in the real world, and that is where, at least for myself, that's where I spend a lot of my time and energy and focus. So it's about almost trying to avoid death in life, in the sense of trying to build things and grow things rather than have things destroyed.
Yes, and I think that I'm glad you said that last word, destroyed, because that's exactly how we don't think about it. Because whereas where INFJ might build something unconsciously, consciously or not, you're building something, through whatever methods you're doing it.
Sure.
And it's like, I guess, I don't know, you take pride or not, but you are constructing, you're producing, you're creating. You don't want to destroy. There's so much effort put into that, in whatever life you're doing, whether school or job or anything, relationships. There's so much energy put into it. You don't want to lose it, so you'll protect it. You'll Whereas I don't know, I'd say, at least for me, I think we give everything equal value. Whereas I wouldn't mind. I mean, some things are certain constraints financially and whatnot, so you can't do it. But if I was, in the ultimate idealistic notion of an INFP would be to be able to create something and you said destroy it, but to gain something and lose something is sort of two sides of the same coin, and they're both equal, and they both deserve the exact same amount of attention. So, having life and not having life deserve equal amounts. If you focus on just having life, then you've missed the point. It's like you have to also focus on, this is just a moment. You were actually gone longer than you were here. So, if anything, you should realize that there are two big sides here, and maybe, who knows, maybe when you're dead you can't think about why you're alive, but at least when you're alive you can think about the other side, and I think that deserves attention. And people that they try to run from it, and it's like, well, why are you running from, in a sense, yourself? You are something that is here and it's not here at some point. You shouldn't run from what you are.
Yeah. So it's almost feel like it needs the rebuttal almost, but I don't think so. I think I don't think INFJs run from death. I think
sorry about that.
We just no. It's all right. I don't think we run from it. I think I just don't think we. I think we see it differently. And there was another aspect to this that I wanted to mention. It'll probably come back to me if we just keep talking. But I've lost my train of thought. But I just
You're not
think,
running from it.
No. Yeah, the piece I wanted to say is that while and this might be more of a type 4 piece as well, that while we don't focus on death, we certainly do focus on depth of feeling and a depth of experience, and tend to be. We're saying, like before we recorded, that type 4s can be, at least for myself, can be attracted to experiences that generate a deep sense of feeling. To the point, and that could be all sorts of feeling, and even like I can choose a movie. I can go see an action film, or I can go and see like a Forrest Gump or The Blind Side, or something that just has this can have a sort of a sad tragicness to it. And yet, so there's a sense of being attracted to deep, dark moments of the soul that, are, in a sense, are about loss, or about hurt, or about brokenness, about
Yes.
I guess to bring that abandonment word back into it. Like there seems to be an attraction to experiencing that depth, because in a sense we find meaning. Somehow we find meaning in that depth. So just to sort of counterbalance the idealistic trying to build, there's a sense of, we get a greater sense of that idealistic picture in tragedy, in loss. There's a sense of the ideal picture of reconciliation, of healing, of connectedness, of restitution, all of those sorts of things. Like the underdog, who struggles and strains, loses everything, yet in the midst of that loss of pain, discovers a deeper, richer meaning, and fulfills their dream and moves into a greater reality and fulfillment. Like, I think INFJs particularly resonate very deeply with that. Because I think ultimately we're all, in regards to others, we're all about that as well. Being somehow a part of helping or seeing others move from loss to something better. So anyway, there's a stream of sort of consciousness there.
Yeah. I sort of picked up on you said you find the deep meaning in this loss, and it's not just about building, or running away from something. When you feel this, when you said you encountered this deep emotional loss, or the tragedy, when you watch something, whatever it is, when you experience that, what is it exactly that you feel you're losing, and what is it exactly that you feel you're gaining?
Could you say that again?
During that moment of loss, I don't want to say just loss in general, that tragic moment when everything's lost, and you said you find that deep meaning.
Yes.
Can you give me a couple examples of?
Okay, I've got it.
Of what it is you feel you're gaining and what it is you feel you're losing at that moment.
Yeah, sure. There's a paradox there, of course, which is, like, let's say one's watching a film where there's deep loss or whatever. In the pain of that, or in feeling that, I think what happens is it's not feeling that's focused on. It's kind of like the loss reflects how do I describe it? It's like the INFJ experiences an awareness of the opposite of the loss. So it's like highlights what is missing. And there seems to be, so it's not like someone wallowing in the sadness. It's like somebody, it's like when we're experiencing the loss and the grief and the whatever, vicariously in a sense. There's an awareness of the polar opposite of that, and that's what's focused on what's been lost, or what is wanted, what is desired. Like the ideal opposite of that is what is yearned for in that moment. I'm not sure if I've described that well enough.
No, I sort of try to, I think in pictures, I think in imagery and whatnot, and the kind of picture when you were talking building was, you said, like, you mentioned it kind of highlights, the polar opposite, and it kind of highlights different things. having this highlights that, not having this highlights this, and that reminded me of the fact that you do have certain points. I don't want to say I don't want to say machine-like. I don't want to say systematic necessarily, but you have points of gathered. I think a good word is you have clusters of information that are connected in some way.
Yeah.
They are there's clusters out there, and they're connected in whatever way. And
sure. They're not out there though. They're probably in here.
Yeah. I'm not sure exactly where you have them or how they're connected, but I do know you have clusters, and they are somewhat formed. They're not necessarily in stone, but they're well formed.
Sure.
And some are stronger than more formed than others. And when you lose one, you might see how that relates to the connection to something else being lost because the links are broken and this or that, and you see that in a larger context of the whole thing, and you go, wow, this is actually what the toll was. This is what actually happened, and you see this kind of larger context, and you kind of reflect on this deep meaning in that. Whereas, at least for me as an INFP, we don't have those links, you see. So whereas you have these clusters, we don't have any clusters. What do you mean clusters? Links. What links? And so so if you say highlight, what is lost, what is gained, it's kind of like, well, nothing was lost, nothing was gained.
Right.
It's just null. Something happened, and it was very deep and profound. Yeah. And I resonate with it very deeply, and I can express that deep feeling. But as far as what was lost, what was gained, that's a very difficult question. Yeah. And the best way to explain it is through poetry. We can't just say, I lost this cluster, I gained this cluster. I don't know, you know what I'm saying? It's not like that.
I've found that whenever someone tries to define introverted feeling, the moment you start speaking, you've already limited its reality.
Right.
The moment you try to explain it loses a lot of what it is in the explanation. That's just my own sense of you guys.
Yeah. Like I was saying before about introverted feeling. I'm sorry, not introverted feeling. Introverted intuition. Yeah. I mean, whereas you guys, I think, I don't know if this is true, but I feel like INFJs have a shadow function of introverted feeling. That they I don't know what it is, but I feel like my mother's an INFJ.
Okay.
And I feel like there is that sort of introverted thing, like almost as like it's the way to communicate with us INFPs. Well, they speak through this introverted feeling, so they communicate through that, but they do it using a different function, but they think they're communicating through introverted feeling. Like they think we're playing the same game. Like, oh, you're introverted feeling, you're sharing in this way. I'll do it in the same way to make you feel comfortable. But yet you're not actually doing it. You think you're doing it, but you're doing it, pseudo through a different function.
Right.
Have you ever experienced that sort of thing?
Maybe I have. Maybe you could tell me, Jacob. Maybe have I?
No.
Have I with you?
I mean, not you necessarily during this conversation, but
I'm just
I just come across that with INFJs.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I don't know if I have consciously done, like I can't think consciously whether I've done that before. I certainly try to understand it, introverted feeling. Like I enjoy seeing it, I enjoy noticing it, I enjoy the mystery of it. but with our extroverted feeling, I think we get a lot of meaning with what we experience through the context of what we feel in the context of relationship. I think that's kind of where the meaning and the awareness is. Yeah, I can see an INFJ trying to do introverted feeling as coming across incredibly artificial and embarrassing. Like, what are you trying to do here? You're with the FI master. Don't don't go there. Stick with NI. It's what you're good at.
Yeah. Yeah. I just wonder if you ever come across that. But yeah, it goes both ways. Like I was saying before in a previous conversation, how INFPs, we, I think it's one of our sort of weaknesses is that we do think in a sense we're superior, because I think really the only reason why we think that, we try to stop ourselves and say that's just the ego. That's a whole different story about the ego, having an ego and not having an ego. But
yeah.
while through all these characters we play, or different types of personalities or perspectives of mind or compartmentalizations of mind, we've tried to create a sort of, or simulate different combinations and different personality types. And since we've played them, we think we know them when we don't. Like if I said I played an INFJ, but I can play an INFJ. It's easy. You're this, right? And then you're this, right? And then, oh yeah, you're, and I mean, we feel like if we can research enough about INFJ, I could be you. If I read your autobiography and I read about INFJs, and I just watched you for a week, I could become you. And you're thinking, that's impossible. Right. What are you talking about? But we have that sort of kind of feeling like before, or I know about you guys, so I know what NI is. So it's like, you don't know what NI is. You think you do, but I think that sort of also goes back to the whole ego thing of thinking we're superior because we've played everybody, so we know everybody. We can do it all.
Right. Okay. Yeah, it's interesting.
So that's our sort of kind of area where we have these shadow pseudo functions, and I think we INFPs have the most pseudo shadow functions out there because we think we can do every possible combination. And to the point where we even think, well, you could be, like maybe there's other combinations. Maybe it's just not the 16 types.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you could have maybe personality could be two types. You're an ENFJ and an INFP or something, and you could actually be. Maybe you could have, that one person could actually be two, and then maybe somebody like you would say, well, no, actually that's not possible. You may have a shadow or a pseudo function using, but it's actually something else that you're disguised as this.
Right.
We will actually believe that it's that's totally possible.
Right.
Yeah. So it may be hard, for somebody who's more grounded to say, well, no, you can't actually combine. Can't be both. You're either one of the 16 or not. I mean, you can't be two of the 16. So.
Yeah, I think a lot of what you're talking about reminds me of an aspect of the video I did about empathy recently. That INFPs sort of almost can become the other person, experiencing everything that they experience. Whereas the INFJ maintains, not that INFPs don't, but it's like there's more of a conscious awareness or something that INFJs maintain a sense of their own identity whilst experiencing life through the other person, and just looking at life from what they're experiencing, what they're feeling, what they're saying. But there seems to be more of an aspect of awareness of I'm here and you're there. That's what it sounds like, at least from my point of view. Yeah. So anyway, we've sort of moved all up and down around the place.
Yeah, I want to move on here to another thing, which is sticking to things, sticking to one thing.
Is that another video,
or? I think
we can fit it in this.
I think only because I'm not sure if I have enough time to do a third video here, so
sure.
I wanted to kind of maybe spend another 10 more minutes on these last few sort of topics here.
Sure.
One is sticking to things, and the other one is open mischievousness, which was what one of the commenters was talking about. So let's talk about sticking to things. As an INFJ, you tend to stick to things more than the INFP would. INFPs tend to, have some sudden bursts of creativity, and we have many cans opened at one time. Many projects happening simultaneously. Whereas, and you could maybe finish 1 or 2 out of the 100. Who knows? But maybe you stick to one thing and you work with it and you make sure it always gets finished and it's done and it makes sense to everything else.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate a little more on that idea of sticking to one thing?
Yeah. Ideally, I like to complete tasks, complete projects, and so on. But there are times where life gets in the way of that. But that's not enjoyable. That's annoying, because the what's not getting finished remains somewhere in me. A good example is I started the Introvert Power Channel with the goal in mind of doing my take on all the different types, and that's still my goal. But life and busyness and other things have got in the way of being able to achieve that in the time frame I thought I was going to do it in. And so I think I've done three, I think, and that is constantly. There's a constant awareness that I want to finish that I want to complete that, and that thing in me will not go away until it's done. So I guess in a sense it's like a public, almost like a public accountability that I'm going to do it. But there's an awareness of that. Okay. There's an awareness that of the things that's unfinished, and which I think can cause stress response for the INFJ if there's too much of that, too much unfinished tasks that are important to get finished, and so on. So yeah.
So is it that sort of sense of, like, it's like a nagging sort of sense? Like, if it's not done, it'll keep saying, hey, finish it, finish it, finish it, and it'll keep kind of nagging at you until you do?
Yeah, but it's kind of, because I've committed to it, because it is actually part of kind of a deeper picture of where I'm going. It is conscious in one aspect, but a part of it is kind of not conscious. It's just there, and I know that I've got to do it, and I attempt to, and I get some things prepared, but other things are coming in, and just life and what it does. So yeah, we definitely like to finish things, but and I think we eventually do. Yeah.
Yeah. So as far as the INFP, we love to finish things. They are now and inspired and are not something that if you have to plan it out for a long time, we can do it. We can't do anything like that, but it's not something that we necessarily want to stick to for just one project. We
Mm.
we will have many projects. So you might find an INFP who has like, I don't know, maybe like 5 or 6 different things happening. Some large projects, some small projects, you know. But the ones that get
Yeah.
done always are going to be the ones that take one day to do,
Mm.
1 week to do. The the,
Mhm.
the things that take a month, a year, 2, 3 years. Those things, you know, you could have three of those things happening at the same time, and then you'll say, "Oh, I'm doing them all at once. It'll take many years," and then maybe it does, and maybe you'll never finish it. But you know, that's sort of
Mm.
our problem.
Yeah.
That we just like to keep opening boxes, and the boxes that actually get actually sorted are going to be the ones that are like really small.
Right.
So that's probably why we like poetry a lot, because it's in the moment, it's now, and you can create it with inspiration, and we can guarantee it'll be done and captured. You
Mm.
know,
Mm. Mm.
um, and by capturing it, we're not necessarily not labeling it. We're just capturing the feeling of what it is. You know, um,
Right.
and I think that ties right back in with these larger projects. When if you want to, let's say, write a book about something really deep, I don't know what it is, but something really big, you may keep thinking it's not good enough. You need more information, and it'll never be ready because you have to reach to be able to actually tell the story.
Right.
It we can't actually say it's very hard for us to actually just give you the chunks that you actually need for it to make sense. We feel like you need much more background information. You need to
Mm.
know, how everything was created for you to actually understand why this is so important or why this was done. So I
Mm.
think that's why these projects have taken a long time. But we know it's going to take a long time, and so we
Yeah.
don't mind having many boxes open. That who knows how long they'll take. It's just how it is.
Yes. Yeah.
Um,
Mm.
but it's usually the
Okay.
small things that we do in these moments, these moments of inspiration.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. The P and the J obviously play a big part here. Um, it's like the INFJ has more of a conscious sort of deliberateness about those tasks and the greater vision and the idealistic picture. Whereas INFPs, it's not that you guys don't have an awareness, but it's a lot more fluid, and it's kind of like the way you do it, you end up getting there just in a different way.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the thing. I don't know if INFPs ever actually get there. I think a character can say
Mm.
they've gotten there through the eyes of a character. They can
Okay.
say this character, yeah, got there in his
Mm.
story, whatever he's doing. But
Mm.
the man in the hallway, between characters in the transitional period, we're not actually ever trying to get anywhere. We only have moments of loss of identity, and then we
Mm.
try to get somewhere, which is re-understand or re-self-realize ourselves. I think that's the only time we have to try to get somewhere, is
Yeah.
try to understand ourselves again. But
Yeah.
as far as trying to get to a certain point, as that transitional person, you know, um, there's not necessarily a certain point we're trying to get to. Because I firmly believe
Mm.
if somebody said they actually got to that point, at that moment
Yeah.
you got to it, you would just say, no, this may not be true. I may be totally wrong. This is, who knows what this is. And then you may hold that in the air as one possibility. And then you go on
Mm.
and search again, and you find two. And you could go on this forever.
Yeah.
And then you have, these non-connected dots, like an infinite amount of these non-connected dots of possible futures or possibilities, possible
Mm.
truths. You know, but which one's the right one? Well, I don't know.
Yeah.
But it goes
Mm.
back to attention and not to.
Mm. I think this can be said that, and maybe a nice way to round off this topic is that ultimately, like
Mm,
INFJs and INFPs have this very, very strong impression to become their best selves and
yes, that's
and
true.
grow in their identity and self-esteem and become the
Hmm.
best selves that they possibly can. I think that's
Right.
partly why INFJs and INFPs
Right.
generally I think get along quite well because they share that depth of
Yeah.
self-actualization.
Yes. Yes.
And
Yes.
I
And
think because we do it
yeah.
so differently, we're intrigued by one
Uh-huh.
another because we're on the same quest and we do it so differently.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. I know what you mean. It's very funny. It's like we're we're on the same trail, but it's like I don't know. Maybe you're like well, you're riding some kind of car or whatever it is, and we're not even in a car. We're I don't know, maybe like the Flintstones. You're like like running with our feet, and you're thinking, well, that's nutty. What are you guys doing? You know?
Yeah, where
Uh,
I'm comfortable in the car and you're comfortable beating the feet.
yeah.
Yeah, we're both comfortable in the way in which we achieve the same ultimate end, ultimate goal. Oh, you there, Jacob? Jacob.
All right. Sorry, I'm back now, guys. So yeah, if you could post to the event page, um, that'd be great. Let me put that link in the showcase here. So if you have the showcase app up, it's posted now. It's personality discussion, INFP and INFJ part two. Let's see here. Yeah, so you can just say something there right below the that video there.
Are you talking to me, Jacob?
Oh no, I'm just talking to the viewers.
Oh,
I'll
okay.
give them a few minutes. A good discussion. We covered a lot of different topics. I think we found some nuggets of truth in that.
Yes, definitely. Mischievousness. Did you want to cover that one?
Oh yes, yeah, it's good timing. I'll talk about that a little bit while if they're gonna while they form their questions if they have any. Uh,
Sure.
so open mischievousness. Let me see who that was. Somebody was asking or talking about that. I think that. think that was this bit is an aquarium. Um, was asking about that, and
Okay.
yeah, that's something I have developed over time. I think younger when I was younger, the INFPs being very introverted, um,
Mm.
really I guess hold secrets, self secrets, don't want to share certain things,
Mm.
and they may do certain things, maybe mischievous, but they don't want to let you know they're being mischievous. Um,
Yep.
whereas the openly mischievous is something that I have learned over time, and I don't do it with everybody. And
Mm.
I've after looking at personalities, I've sort of um, tried to see if I could pinpoint right away a general frame of a person's personality. And if I feel comfortable that I've understood who they are, if they're extroverted this or oh I saw these, maybe they're this, I saw
Mm.
some traits. If I feel comfortable knowing who they are a little bit, I can either be mischievous or overtly mischievous. So open or closed here. I mean,
Yeah.
for example, if you're a extroverted, if you're NE, um,
Yeah.
I may let you know I'm being mischievous because you
Mm.
probably already know I'm being mischievous because you can already sense it.
Mm-hmm.
I can't hide it from you because you're already aware of it. So I'm
Right.
not going to tell you like, oh, I'm not going to hide anything. But if you are not, I'm not going to give you clues that I am. So if
Mm.
you have the skill to see mischievousness, then I will let you see it. If you
Mm-hmm.
don't have the skill to see it, then I am not going to show you that I'm being mischievous. I will hide it and use it. So I guess
Mm.
it's one of those things I'll use it to my own benefit.
Okay.
So I can't lose by doing it. So that's the openness of it. I think it's a good thing too, because we
Sure.
growing up we're always so very closed and don't want to show anything or show our secrets or so it being able to be open about what we're doing, I think helps in accepting who we are, because
Mm.
it's just part of who we are as being mischievous. And the more we hide things, the more I think we become closed off to you know understanding who we are with our identity, because if nobody can relate to it, nobody can talk about it, it's just always us wondering who we are rather than us openly wondering and having an open discussion about it and other people like you talking about what it could possibly be or mean.
Mm.
So it helps us build confidence by being mischievous and being open about it to certain people.
Yeah. Sure. Mm. Does sarcasm fit anywhere in there?
um, I'm not sure. I mean, I'm not sure if that's an INFP thing or not. But there is one thing I could touch on is criticism. And I think yeah, we most INFPs take it very hard because most of their art or their personal works or whatever they're doing, they see it as being very authentic, original, not mainstream,
Mm.
and some will say, and the classic thing is they'll go, oh, I don't care if you like it, if you can love it or hate it. I just love what I do or whatever. But of course they want you to love it. They don't want you to hate it. They want
Mm.
you to see exactly. Well, I'm speaking for myself. That's myself too. I want you to see what it is I see.
Mm.
Yes, it may not be this or that or what you're used to, but I just want you to see that the artistic nature or viewpoint or aspect that I see here in it.
Right.
And as long as you can see it, it's all I care about. I don't necessarily, care that it's the best according to certain standards. I just want you to see what I'm seeing,
Mm.
and that's it. So when you don't, somebody says, "Oh, that's crap," we feel like, "Wow, that hurt us," because not just because maybe it's crap according to standards. We don't care because we would say, "Well, you're just looking at it according to standards, and that's why you think it's crap." We would say we feel hurt because you didn't even give you know any time to actually truly look at what we were trying to show you. You just shot it down. You didn't actually, you already judged it. You didn't actually look at it, and
Yeah.
at least attempt to see what we're seeing. That's what we don't like. Because you can like whatever you want, but I think if you judge right away, and that immediate judging is, I think, something we don't like.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think INFJs would share that.
Yeah. So in a sense, with criticism, I think everybody, if somebody doesn't like it, really, it doesn't matter. Only give time to people who actually are willing to see it from how you see it. If they don't, then whatever. Don't waste time on it. Don't give them any time. Let the haters hate.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, I just, in general, most INFPs are just very crushed whenever they hear anything, So don't take it that way. Yeah. Which is something you develop over time, Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Excellent.
Well, I mean, let's see here. Yeah, I don't see any questions here, so let's see here. Let's see here. Oh yes, this bit is an aquarium. If people are still here and they're on the event page, I'll read it for them. This bit is an aquarium says, I just want to say that I don't actually think a person can be a combination of two or more types. Just to add another INFP perspective, when I think of MBTI theory, I think of it only in terms of the framework. I mean, in terms of this framework, you can only be one type, and that's based on your two dominant functions. That being said, I don't think the MBTI framework is an exact reflection of the complexity of people and their functions. I think people can be strong in ones that aren't the typical to their assigned type, but maybe she's saying the same thing. But in general, people are really hard to type. But yeah, to kind of comment on that, yeah, I think you're right. I mean, it's MBTI isn't the answer, and I think it's very funny that she said that, because that's the perfect answer for an INFP, and I agree. It's like, it's not the answer. Nothing is the answer. If you had the answer, then are you sure you have the answer? Is that really it? By saying you have the answer, it's like you already put it in the box and you closed and you sealed it and labeled it. So, by saying this is only one possibility, that's like keeping everything in the air again. That's what we do, all possibilities at all times. This is one possible solution. It's like, I'm not sure what happened there. Sorry about that, guys. My connection cut out. But Scott, if you can give us your opinion on MBTI and it being a framework or a theory, and is it the only one? Is it the answer, or are there many other options?
I very much resonate with what one of the viewers was saying, that it's an imperfect theory that is very helpful to understand aspects of a person, but it's not a complete answer to the riddle of personality and our complexity, but it's certainly very helpful in helping to understand, I think, some key parts of who we are. Helps to normalize, various aspects of us. And I think more broadly than that, it can help to separate what we can sometimes think are issues, which are actually just personality type differences. And it can help to put issues in context within a personality type. So if someone's experiencing this sort of issue, then if they have this sort of personality type, then they're most likely going to be experiencing this issue in a particular way based on their type. So I think it's a great theory. There's people that are really against it.
Yes.
And then there's people that absolutely resonate with it. And I just think that's just the way it is. Some people see it, and it makes a whole lot of sense, and other people just don't appreciate it. But I found it to be very, very helpful personally. In counselling, I find it incredibly helpful as well with clients and with working with clients. So, yeah, that would be my response, I think.
Have you encountered? This is what I've encountered. Is that people who aren't necessarily self-searching or self-searchers of different identity and internally and self-realizations about themselves. People who are not like that tend to not care for personality stuff like this, and it's kind of like that makes total sense. So when I talk to them, they're like, "Well, I could care less about personality typing," And you talk to people who are searching for themselves. They love the whole idea, and they're very open and willing to talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a part of that is down to feeling affirmed, and that a lot of the more common types, a lot of the sensors and the thinkers, often their type is well understood growing up, and they often meet other people with the same functions, and so it's normal, it's understood, and they just live with it. Whereas I think some of the intuitive types, especially I think the INFJ and the INFP, they haven't had a lot of people often resonating with who they are. And I think that the MBTI just sort of says you are normal, and this is why you haven't felt understood and haven't felt like you connect with lots of people, is because you have these functions that just aren't well represented in the community. And so I think that's why the INFJ, the INFP, MBTI community, especially online, is so big, is because it helps to normalize those rarer types. And so I think it's a great theory. But answer part of the other part of the question is there's a lot, like, people that are more extroverted, they live on the outside. They're not really interested in the internal way that things work. And so from that point of view, they could look at the MBTI and go, yep, that sounds like me. Yep, that's what I do. Yep, oh, that's interesting, and go and have lunch. Whereas, the INFJ, INFP are like having a spiritual experience when they're reading about their type. It has such a deep resonation on deep within. And I think in a sense both fine. All of these different types of theories of personality have, like the Enneagram and the others. They all have their their strengths, and they all have something to offer.
Right.
But I just think the MBTI is helpful on a lot of levels.
Have you thought about becoming a certified Enneagram? I guess. not sure what you call it.
Yeah, I don't know even know. I guess there is probably a pathway to that. I think at this stage of where I'm at, I'm still just enjoying working with the MBTI and wanting to continue to refine that and master that, and and really cement that in. And I think as I go along, like I'm noticing, I'm getting more into the Enneagram as I go along. Whether I turn that into something sort of official, I'm not too sure.
Right.
There's pluses and minuses to being certified in these things. But no, it's been a very powerful tool in the counselling department.
Oh, there's a new post here from This Bed is an Aquarium. Scott, can you read that? It's sort of related for you here.
Where do I go?
On the INFP and INFJ Part 2, personality discussion, event page.
On your page?
Here, let me send you the link.
Yeah.
Do you have the showcase? Do you have showcase on the left-hand side? You can click on showcase.
Okay.
Then at the very bottom, you'll see Part 2.
Okay, just bear with me. Showcase. Part
very
2.
Bottom, scroll down.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. You'll see that there.
All right, just. Okay, just bear with me. I once asked an INFJ if he wrote poetry, and he said he would if he learned how to, as in like the proper format or one form or another. As someone who just spurts themselves onto a page, I find that really funny. He seemed like a really sensitive and intelligent person, and it seemed weird to me that he felt he needed more than that to write something meaningful. Scott, does this relate to you as an INFJ? I'm trying to get my head around the question.
So the proper format, compared to like somebody who just kind of has word vomit, and just expresses himself, and whatever comes out of the stream of consciousness, sort of the INFP sort of method.
Well, I very much resonate with that in a conversational sense of just of just in a way I think of just letting the NI just bring it out.
What about poetry?
Yeah, poetry. I've never been into it. So it's not something that I've resonated with or connected to.
Right. What about creative writing?
Yeah, I've done a little bit of that. It wears my TI out though. I spend so much time perfecting it, moving commas and thus, moving words around, changing words. Like I spend a long time when I do write. I'm just not quite sure, like if I'm addressing the viewer's question. I find. Yeah.
No, I was just thinking. One way I took it was that proper format versus format. Is that something that's an INFJ quality? Is that they would look for something that's more proper format?
I think so. I think so. In as a general rule, that we would, if we're going to do something, we want to do it the right way. But like I don't know if this helps to answer some aspects of this. I had somebody email me recently and asked me sort of a whole lot of big questions, and I didn't want to. I just don't really have the time to write long emails, response emails.
Mm.
Yet they were important questions, and I knew that to do them any justice, I had to spend some time writing it. And so I just basically said, and I knew that if I just spurted it out, that I'd
Right.
totally misrepresent myself. I'd feel really uncomfortable. I feel like I'd be creating problems rather than
Mm.
answering questions. And so I just said, look, I'm not into massive long emails. Look, let's catch up. And I'd rather speak it. I'd rather, because I feel I can be a lot more accurate with my language.
Mm. Mm. Mm.
Um, so, because I've found when I just blurt things out in quick responses, I often come across the opposite of what I'm trying to do. I even offend people, and it's
Mm.
totally by accident because I don't link certain things that I'm saying together, and it can come across um, the opposite of what I'm intending to. So I generally try not to splurt um,
Mm.
answers to questions out. Yet, with what we're doing, I feel quite comfortable in just
Uh-huh.
like I'll get a sense of something you're saying, and I'll think, oh, well, that's what's in me. I'm going to share about that, and I'll share about that, and then we'll
Right.
go off in different directions. And I'm very comfortable with that. And I think because you're an intuitive, so as an
Uh-huh.
intuitive, you're picking up the bits and pieces that matter, and it resonates in something in you, and I trust that, and I know that all the other aspects of what I've shared will have some kind of meaning somewhere.
Mm.
And
Mm.
so with this, I'm very fluid. I think very open. With writing, I generally I try to be more detailed or specific.
Mm. Mm.
And often I find it really hard responding to comments on the YouTube channel because I take a lot of their questions really seriously, and I find
Right.
like I spend half an hour trying to craft a response, and I never hear anything back, and I'm like, it's not worth my while. Sometimes,
Mm.
and so then I think I'll just have to give a quick sort of response back, a bit like now I'm giving a very long response back. Yeah, so I don't know. It's
Mm. Mm.
communication.
But in general, it's more. But to go back to the question, it's more
Yeah,
of a technical endeavor, right, than a free-flowing kind of creative one when it comes to writing of that sort.
yeah. When it comes to writing, I'm a lot more
Okay.
specific and intentional, and that's why it takes me so long because I got this NI stuff, and I've got to try and give it some logic accuracy seems to be very important to me when I do writing.
Hmm. Okay. Hmm. Yeah, definitely not us INFPs. Just definitely splurt it out. Just get it out there. Whatever it is, just release it. Uh, don't don't mind whatever comes out. It's just know that it's supposed to come out. You know, like
Mm-hmm.
whatever it is that comes out, it's supposed to come out. So just let it be. Let it do it.
Yep,
You know.
yep,
It's
yeah.
like it's like
So,
it's natural for it to come out, so just let it do its thing.
and if you do that with someone who misunderstands all of that, does that bother you?
Yes, sure. Oh, it's
Yeah,
very difficult when people are very, very like nitpicky and technical and
yeah.
hypercritical. Um,
Mm, mm,
uh, kind of like I'm not sure if you listen to Alan Watts at all, but Alan Watts talks about prickly people versus what is it? Prickly versus goo people versus prickly people, and
mm-hmm,
prickly people are sort of like everything diced up and kind of labeled, pinned down, and have an exact meaning and definition and all this. And whereas the goo people like everything vague and in the clouds, and nothing's really well formed. And
mm,
that's what's beautiful about it. It's all kind of so goo people versus prickly people. And as a goo person myself, I'm a little prickly, but mostly goo. And when and I feel like if I show my goodness to people, and like a particular person sees my writing or whatever, and they read it or something, you know, it can be hard to take. If I understand that they're a particular person, I try not to care what they say, because I know they're not going to like it, because they're going to be like, oh well, they're going to look at all the things that I'm not looking at. Like they might be looking at grammar, they might be looking at something very technical that I really don't even care about, and I feel like they miss the point, you know. So it can be hard when dealing with somebody who's very, very technical like that.
As an introvert, I can write, and I do, but I'm not an introvert that prefers writing over communicating, talking. I'd rather talk. I'd rather talk about things than write about them.
Right.
And I think for me, it's the feeling part. Like I like the feeling aspect of talking with another and all of that. Whereas the writing has its place, but it costs me a lot more energy. And I'm a bit of a perfectionist when it comes to writing, and often I don't have the energy required to fulfill what I want to write sometimes. And but when I do, it pays off. When I do write, it usually goes well, but it's definitely not my preferred mode.
So I think I wrap things up here. We had a great discussion. These should be posted, I believe, to my YouTube channel soon after, right? They're not broadcasting here. So to our viewers, thank you for listening in. You should be able to find these on my channel. I will give Scott access to re-uploads, and we can also find them on his channel as well.
I'm not sure if we can do that yet. I'll have to check it out.
I'll look into it too, but definitely you can find it on my channel.
Yeah.
Any last words, final words?
No, well, thanks. Hopefully it's been of benefit to those that have watched. It's certainly been good just chatting and talking about a whole range of topics. And yeah, very, very much appreciate the conversation.
Yeah. Thank you. All right, guys. Take care of yourselves.
See you later.
Much love.
Bye-bye.